Alright, what's up everybody, and welcome back to the Alpha Obeisance channel. I've got a lot to catch you guys up on. It's been quite a winter for me. I discovered a lot of things, learned a lot of things, and I'm eager to share them with you. This is going to kind of be a long and drawn out video because for whatever reason the pause button on OBS Studio is not working. Therefore, this is an uncut video. Probably going to run off on a bunch of squirrel tails and conversational pieces, but hey, if you're an introvert like me, maybe you don't mind a little extra conversation. So let's catch up to speed here. A couple months ago I went to Arizona to help a friend of mine pick up a bunch of technology and bring it back to his home in Kansas, and in return I ended up coming home with a PowerEdge 2950 or 2950 I believe it was. Not a bad little machine. It was developed in 2006. This particular machine only had 16 gigs of RAM and a single processor and maybe a couple terabytes worth of storage, but it was enough to get my foot in the door and open my eyes to the reality of home lab environments, which is not something that I was aware of. When it comes to quote-unquote home lab environments, my idea of what home lab was just using my computer to manage virtual machines through VMware Workstation and so on and so forth. Managing other computers here on my network, my wife's computer, my son's computer, my father-in-law's computer, they're all running Arch Linux, and doing the systems admin thing from my computer. But I had no idea that I could get my hands on a corporate grade server. So now that I had experienced the PowerEdge 2950, I quickly realized that I would want much more power at my fingertips. Therefore, I went and bought a PowerEdge R730, developed in 2012. This one comes with 128 gigs of RAM, 2 Xeon processors, and 30 terabytes worth of storage, which really just kicked that door open for home lab environments for me. So anyone that's already been there, done that with the home lab environment, they're going to know exactly what I'm talking about from that moment that you realize that you can build a mean system at home, like a corporate grade level system at home to experiment with, and the excitement that comes with that. So I'm definitely in that state of mind where I'm super eager. Good God, I'm trying to learn 10,000 different things at once. It's a nightmare. I'm up for days on end sometimes if I really get to hyperfixating on things. So let's break down what it was like for me once I got my PowerEdge R730. So I mounted it on my wall. I built a studio down in my basement, and I mounted this thing on the wall, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I plugged it up to the internet and tried installing ESXi onto the server itself. Unfortunately, I was running into issues, and I was super impatient. I was so excited to get things going that I couldn't figure it out. So I ended up doing what I do best, and I installed Arch Linux onto the R730. Everything was running great. It was basically a corporate server running Arch Linux with a desktop environment. I was running VMware Workstation, much like you guys had seen in previous videos, and I was running this corporate server exactly like I was running my personal computer, and it was doing everything just fine. I mean, it would have worked just the way I was doing it. But I quickly realized upon discovering that I could run essentially my own media streaming service from home using my own media. Like my father-in-law, he's got like over 1,700 DVDs. So I realized very quickly that I was going to need far more space than VMware Workstation was able to give me. The capacity for virtual machines when it comes to storage through VMware Workstation is 8 terabytes. You cannot create virtual machines with more than 8 terabytes worth of storage through VMware Workstation. So that was a major issue for me. I kind of had to start from scratch, and it forced me to acknowledge the issue I was having with ESXi, where I wasn't able to get it installed. Turns out it was a very common basic issue of a corrupted USB installation drive. So I recreated the installation drive and got ESXi installed onto the R730, where I very quickly realized that for whatever reason, upon installing ESXi onto the server, all of the fans inside the server were running at 100% all of the time. And it took me about a week to figure all of it out, again, because I was focusing on so many different projects at once. But eventually the fans were driving me so unbelievably insane, and my family, mind you. If you've never sat beside a server, even just one server, where all of its fans are cranked out at 100%, it legitimately sounds like a 747 going off. Like, I'm down in my basement. This is where my home lab and my studio's at, and you could hear those fans cranking from the third story of my house. Like, it was truly mind-boggling how loud it was. So what that ended up forcing me to do was learn about iDRAC, and I quickly realized that I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off because I didn't even have iDRAC connected to the network. I didn't realize that I had to have another Ethernet cable running to the network so that I could actually access the iDRAC system. And so once I realized that, I got everything hooked up. I got access to the iDRAC, set up the users and everything, and once I actually got in there, I did a whole bunch of research and realized that I could use the IPMI tool to manually configure the fan speeds on the PowerEdge R730. So what I did is I cranked them way low, down to like 10%. And so then I went from sounding like a 747 all the way down to sounding like a purring kitten. And I watched the temps for a few days and finally decided that about 25% was perfect for what I am doing here in my home lab. I'm not putting the server under so much stress that I really don't have to worry about temperatures. So I'm able to lock it in at 25%. It's nice and quiet, it's not overbearing, and it keeps my server running at an optimal temperature. So once I got that figured out, I started creating virtual machines. And this is where it gets interesting, because the first thing I always do is I create a dedicated VM specifically for running dedicated game servers. We run Minecraft servers, Pal World servers, Ark Survival Evolved servers, Ark Survival Ascended servers, like the list goes on, okay? That's what I have done for a long time. My whole family's a bunch of nerds. We all play games. So therefore, I host my own dedicated servers. So that's the first thing I set up. And I did it through Arch Linux because I love Arch Linux. Very minimal, very easy to work with. And the next thing I did was I discovered, of course, I'd mentioned earlier, the Jellyfin, or the media streaming server. I realized that I could basically have my own Netflix by using all of my own media here at home. And so yeah, I set up a Jellyfin server and got that all configured and everything, and that was fun and exciting. But then I discovered that I could basically create my own cloud here at home, you know. So I learned how to use Nextcloud. It's basically your own cloud service, you know, like Google Drive or Proton Drive or whatever, OneDrive from Microsoft Word. It's the exact same thing. It's just on your own network. Now I do have some limitations because I do not have a static IP. Unfortunately, I can't afford that kind of internet service. So I can't really create or experience what it's like to configure a cloud or a service like Jellyfin for access from outside of the network. But my entire family, you know, once they get home, they're in the house, they're connected to the network, they have access to all of this stuff. They can, you know, synchronize their files to our cloud. They can, you know, stream the media from our Jellyfin server, and so on and so forth. And last but not least, I learned about Waza, which is a free and open source SIEM software, cybersecurity software for those that don't really know what that is. And so I learned about that, and I basically established my own SIEM server through Waza, and I am actively, slowly but surely, learning how to use it. I have had issues deploying agents on certain Linux distributions. More or less, I'm creating multiple VMs in different Linux flavors to see how easy it is to deploy Waza agents for monitoring these systems. And the list goes on. So that has essentially been what's been going on here at the Alpha Obeisance Studio, and it's just been a huge learning experience, and I would really like to share what I've learned, not only for the sake of sharing, but also to document things that I've learned, because if I've learned anything since abandoning Windows, It is that I forget more than I know because I study so much so rapidly. I learn how to do something, and then I learn how to do 30 other things, and then by the time I've learned something else, I've probably started to forget some of the things that I had already learned. It's not that I can't recall the information, but Google has become my friend, and I'm starting to realize that that's kind of a normal thing in the IT world. Is you might not know, but if you're competent enough to know how to do the research, you can usually find the answer in a matter of seconds. So that being said, I have a huge amount of content that I would like to bring you guys. If there's anything in particular that you would like to see, please drop a comment down below and let me know. It's always easier to make a video if I know what you guys would like to see. If you have questions pertaining Linux, ESXi, iDRAC, Waza or Nextcloud, or the list goes on. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. This concludes my update video, and with any luck, here within the next week or so, we are going to install some Fedora Linux servers. We're going to install some VMs and get some things configured. I'll go through a Jellyfin setup so that you guys can start using your own media as your own streaming service on your own network. We'll set up a Nextcloud server so that you guys can actually store your own data on your own network, and we'll just go on from there. That being said, I appreciate it. If you guys are still here, thanks for watching. Definitely hit that like button if you found anything even remotely useful, at the very least entertaining. I hope everything's going well with you guys, with you and yours, and we'll catch you in the next one.